What if I told you that even if mortgage rates drop below 6%, housing prices are still headed for a major correction? Let's take a deep dive into the hidden forces pushing prices down and why the government is covering it up and lying their asses off. Why listen to me about this? My name is Brian Johnson. I've been a real estate broker for over 30 years, but I don't sell real estate. My income does not depend on any way on houses selling. That's the problem when you listen to people who are in real estate. They're sort of full of this hopium where they don't want to admit the truth about what's going on because basically their income depends on everything just moving and constantly selling and prices always going up. Do you remember the cringiest statement a few years ago that people were saying in real estate, marry the house and date the rate? How did that work out for people? That came up around 2021 when interest rates took the big jump up above 5%, then they headed to 6%, and then they were above there. I remember mortgage people telling me, multiple people, they were saying, I guarantee you in 6 months, rates are going down. We know what's going on, and we guarantee it, rates are going down. Marry the house, but date the rate. That was so self-serving back then, and it was so cringy. Anyone that guarantees you that they know personally what is exactly going to happen in the market coming up, and their income depends on that happening, don't listen to them. They have no credibility whatsoever. Doesn't mean they're wrong, but it means they have no credibility because their income depends on it happening. I'm in property management. My income is dependent on people renting properties. If the sales market falls apart, guess where those people are headed? They're headed over to the rental side. So you might say I lack credibility because I'm hoping that that happens. It's not, that's a little bit different, I think. I'm going to tell you what I think as a professional real estate broker who's been in this business forever, what I see coming up in the market. And if you want to say I'm not credible because I'm in property management and I'm a broker, fair enough. But I'm going to show you the data. So first, I'm going to give you a little outline of what I'm going to talk about. And then I'm going to sit down at the computer and I'm going to actually show you the data. Housing prices must decline due to skyrocketing ownership costs and artificial suppression of foreclosures via government programs. I will back it up with fresh data from the last 12 months, focusing on the USA as a whole. So, part one, the affordability illusion. Let's just call it that. Lower rates won't save the day. Rising costs. Let's look at insurance is up 20% plus in recent months. Property taxes are hiking at least 4% nationally. HOA fees have jumped at least 14%. Utilities are spiking at 9.5%. Maintenance costs like roofing and appliances are inflating at 9 to 30%. The add-ons could add another 10 to 20% of eat up 20% of buying power. Look at your household spending. Groceries, plumbers coming at $400 an hour. Electricians coming in at that same rate, $300 to $400 an hour. I'm seeing hot water heaters, gas hot water heaters, replacement costs $3,000 to $5,000. AC systems, air conditioning systems coming in as high as $16,000. Those mini split systems installed for $9,000. I'm seeing roof replacements coming in at $15,000 to $30,000. I had a bid recently, just the other day, on a sewer line replacement on a house in the city on about a 5,000 square foot lot. And it was a little bit of a distance to say it was around 90 feet of sewer line, $38,000 coming in on that. Now, I know everyone says, oh, I have a buddy, he can do it cheaper. Forget the buddy prices. Buddy prices don't count. Buddy prices don't drive the market. I see these bids all the time in volume. We manage 1,300 units in my city. You'd think we'd be getting volume pricing. We don't get volume pricing because all of these guys can step out and work directly for homeowners and be busy all day long at those prices. Have you even looked at the price of carpets and LVP flooring lately coming in? I see carpet bids on the traditional, let's say a 1,500 square foot house coming in at maybe $4,000 to $8,000. I'm seeing LVP flooring coming in at that same rate. It is very, very expensive to own a house nowadays. If the rates go down and you say my mortgage payment could potentially go down, that is completely eaten up by all of these costs that I'm going to show you how much they're going up. Now, let's talk about part two, where we're going to deep dive into that, the hidden government manipulation. So we had a huge equity boom from 2018. $15 to $20 trillion enables rewrites instead of foreclosures. FHA and VA modifications, adding delinquencies to the principals. Fannie and Freddie's 46,000 prevention actions in Q2 of 2024. These absolutely delay foreclosures or basically hide them from happening. Then Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are selling these problem loans in bulk to servicers The government doesn't want to admit that they're going to be the ones foreclosing. So they're offloading these probably at 50 cents on the dollar to third-party servicers. And then they're going to probably turn these things into rentals. That's speculation on my part. Some people, they're going to kick them out. They're going to foreclose. But a lot of people right now, what they do is just rewrite into that equity, pull it out and cover their hidden payments that they're not making. After that, what's going to happen? I think a lot of these services will basically kick these people out and turn these properties into rentals. We all hear the stories of BlackRock, and it's not always BlackRock. It's the other sister company of BlackRock that's buying properties in bulk and turning them into rentals. They buy these properties at a lower rate, get maybe $300,000 or $400,000. Then they can go in and manipulative tactic and falsely inflate a sale price up to $600,000 or $700,000 on a few properties that resets the entire market price for that neighborhood. It's highly manipulative. Now, another thing that you're seeing is data revisions. We've all seen the government lying about data revisions on employment. They're also doing that same thing. They're doing it on foreclosure stats, and they're hiding the distress. So look at that. I know this is being the bearer of bad news, but I think it's fair to be honest about what's going on in the market, as investors or potential homeowners can make smart decisions on what you're going to buy. Let's drop in. Let me show you the data. All right. I said I was going to drop into the data and show you this, you guys, and I'm going to. There's a lot of links here that I'm going to show you. And I'm not even going to talk through all of the links, but they will all be provided in the description below, and I'll sort them out by sections so you can look down there and check this out for yourself. And I want you guys to really look at this data and see if you agree with me, if you disagree. If you disagree, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. If you think prices can stay up like this, or if you think prices are going to be headed down like I think. I think we could be looking at a major revision by the maybe summer of next year. This thing, real estate is like a slow-moving disaster. It doesn't happen fast. When things start going down, it's going to take a while. And some of these numbers, when they're manipulating the data, take a long time to kind of show up in the market as they can kind of trail this out. But I think we all feel it across the U.S. as prices are just going up on literally everything. I mean, we went down the other day down to a festival. It's called Pig Out in the Park in my city. And it's a free music festival. It's all about having food vendors in there. And the average price that I saw, now this is, of course, just anecdotally as I'm walking around seeing this, but the average meal cost of the food truck at an outdoor festival, not a big concert fest, the average price that I saw out there to grab something to eat, let's say one of them was a baked potato with like some barbecue meat on it, was $17 plus. The cheeseburger at the same place was $16 to $18. And this is for like little portions of food truck pricing. And these weren't like high-end food trucks. This was the equivalent of fair food. You go to the fair and you get elephant ears type of food, right? This wasn't high-end gourmet food trucks. My city isn't high-end in the first place. I'm in Spokane, Washington. If you know that town, you know we're far from high-end. We're not even quite medium-end in this town. So, that's just kind of is what it is. But when I'm walking around, I'm thinking if I was to grab dinner for me and my kids, to say just for 3 people, and just to grab 3 little food truck fair-type burgers is going to cost me like probably $60 by the time you just throw in a drink. It's ridiculous. That is expensive. Everything. Look at grocery prices going up out there. I know everyone's feeling it. We kind of hear this number that, inflation is going down. Well, the rate of inflation is going down. It doesn't mean costs are going up. We all feel it. Everywhere I look, it's getting so expensive just simply to do anything. I'm not even going to drop into healthcare costs, education costs. We're just looking at housing here. So that's why I'm saying that even if rates go down, we are looking a massive drop in pricing in the next year. I can't guarantee it. This is just what I think and where I feel things are headed. How much of a correction could we be looking at? I don't know. I think it could be cataclysmic. Real estate always moves. There's always changes in pricing. I mean, people are talking about how our rates are crazy high right now with 7%. Historically, we're at low rates. When I started in real estate back in the 80s, I know that's when I started in real estate. Back in the 80s, we were looking at interest rates around 17%, right? And with these rates, people still can't afford to buy a house because incomes aren't going up nearly at the pace of housing costs going up. And then when I say housing costs, it's not just the price of the housing, it's going to be the expense of owning a house. And that's what I'm going to drop into right here as we look at some of this data. So really, even if mortgage rates fall below 6%, as some people are expecting by this year, we just had the Fed saying that they're going to go, they're going to be dropping rates 1, maybe 2 times in the next few months coming into the end of 2025. The total cost of owning a home has really surged due to insurance, HOA fees, utilities, maintenance, labor, appliances, roofing, and all those other expenses of what it takes to own a house. This increase, it's definitely outpacing any sort of wage growth that we're seeing out there, making houses basically less affordable overall, and renting being better option because basically the landlord has to cover all the expenses on maintaining the property. And this really forces, potential price corrections to attract buyers coming up, because just dropping the rates is not going to bring all the buyers back into the market. Of course, you do have a lot of outliers where people are on the fence right now and hoping rates go down. But, we still have the problem of 70+% of all mortgages out there are below 4%. And those people are trapped in their properties. So this is a weird market, and it's all due to government manipulation over the last few years. It's not a healthy market because it's not a normal market. And then who's going to pay the price? Homeowners. And I think we're going to see some massive asset depreciation coming up in the next year. So one of the problems is that the national median household income only grew 22% since 2019, while the costs to own a house have gone more than double that. Look at this Forbes article right here. Experts predict how much rates will drop. I'm not going to bore you by literally reading all these articles, you guys. I will, like I said, I'll provide links in the description if you'd like to dig in and look at these articles yourself. And then we've got a USA Today or Money on US News and World Report, mortgage rates forecast, when will they go down? So, even if rates are below 6%, let's say at 5.25% or 5.75%, affordability remains really, really strained due to high prices and all these other costs. 32% of Americans say they need rates below 6% simply to buy comfortably. I think they're lying. I honestly think they're just hoping it goes way, way below that. I think you'd have to see rates below 4 or even 3%, which will not happen again, for people to be able to come into the market and buy at this high price range that's a massively inflated price range. That's why I'm saying prices need to come down, because what we're not seeing incomes rising enough to be able to afford these houses. But think about a new home buyer, a young couple, a young person trying to buy a house. Traditionally single family renters or single person renters stay single person renters, right? It usually takes people forming, couples or two people getting together and, buying a property. Now, I know there's some outliers to that. You're seeing, single, nurses have really high incomes and they can buy properties. But I'm talking generally speaking throughout the years, is single income renters stay single renters. It's when they become a dual household, a dual income household, that they can move and buy a house. But even in my market, when you're seeing, an entry-level house is above $300,000 and you're not seeing incomes rising above that, this is a problem. We need either incomes to rise dramatically or we need prices to drop dramatically. Home insurance premiums rose 38% nationally since 2019, you guys. That's a 20% jump just in 2023 and 2024. In the last 6 months, averages hit 2,200 plus annually. That's up 11 to 15% year over year due to what they call climate risks and inflation. I don't believe that for a second. Now, Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows the producer price indexes for insurance climbing a lot, with no downward revisions noted at all. Over 5.3 million households paid $4,000 plus in 2023, and that kind of varies by region. The census.gov numbers are going to show you right here. Again, I'm not going to bother showing you literally everything. It's just going to drive you crazy. So property taxes are up 2.7% to 4% nationally in 2024. I know in my state, we just raised property taxes in Washington State, a big jump this year. They passed a big bill of raising taxes across the board on everything. It has people completely freaked out, but that is certainly what's going on. But with some other states, we're seeing 10.6% hikes in the last 6 months just to reassessments with this post-price boom. So there's a problem right there. You have this falsely inflating market where prices shot up basically because we have no inventory because people are trapped in their houses. And then everyone's, property taxes go way up because their valuations get shot up artificially. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. And does the government ever give relief to homeowners on these property tax increases that go up because of these, what I would call falsely inflated asset valuations? Hell no, they're not going to give you any tax relief on that. They're absolutely soaking up that money and they're going to grab more if they can. And then the Tax Foundation, which is a think tank, is absolutely they're saying there's going to be a revolt due to this. I don't know how people are going to revolt, but I think one of the things they're going to do is they're going to give up and they're going to sell their properties and they're going to come to me and they're going to be renting. So HOA fees, median fees rose 14% in 2024, up to $125 a month, averaging or $1,500 a year just for HOA. Increases, that's what I'm talking about. The averages are $300 to $400 a month for HOA dues in most states. In the last 6 months, fees in high HOA areas climbed due to insurance pass-throughs from disasters, and that is an enormous amount. And then when you have these big disasters in Florida, that insurance costs don't just hit the people in Florida. That affects everyone nationally when insurance rates go up. And you have a lot of insurance fraud going on in Florida and Texas. It's a rampant problem, and it drives up insurance rates for everyone, all of us, all of us. And HOAs now cover 40+% of all sales, and basically adding 5 to 6% to home values because of these increasing costs. That's 5 to 6% of the value, just for rising HOA costs. That, again, doesn't help new homeowners, or to think that even if rates go down just a little bit, so your payment goes down a little bit on your future purchase, but these other costs are increasing at a much higher rate than what your small payment decrease would be from lower rates. So let's talk about utilities. Residential electric utility bills are up 22%, $264 from 2021 to 2024. That's 9.5% spike in the first 5 months of 2025 alone. You can look at this article on solar.com about that in AmericanProgress.org. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the CPI, shows household energy is up 2 to 3% monthly in 2025, outpacing official inflation. Again, that's going to eat up any sort of decrease in payment from a decrease in mortgage costs of if we go below 6%. Again, all these costs are shooting up. And again, like I said in my intro, the maintenance costs, because I see this in a brutal way across my 1,300 units that I manage, because I see a lot of bills coming through on maintenance costs on literally everything. You can't even imagine the numbers that I'm seeing out there. The overall repair remodel costs are up 4% just in Q1 of 2025. Home maintenance is averaging $10,000 a year. There's an article right here in Forbes about that. $10,000 a year in average home maintenance costs. That's a lot of money. Roofing repairs alone are $1,471 on average across the U.S. That's a 30% increase year on year. Appliance and labor is up 9.3%. The appliance costs up 9.3% due to basic shortages out there, labor shortages out there, and that is brutal. It is brutal to think you buy a house, so you have to replace the fridge, the microwave, the dishwasher, the range, the cost of, it's brutal. We all know the costs. Here's the other bad thing about these appliances. They are absolutely designed to fail. I'm seeing, $4,000 fridges that have a 2-year lifespan. Do you remember back in the old days, grandma's fridge, an ugly green or an ugly yellow fridge out there, freezer up top, fridge down below? Those things are still working. I have units that have 25-year-old fridges that are working perfectly, and I see replacements on appliances on new houses from 3 years ago. This is very common. In the last 6 months, the tariffs on materials hasn't really hit yet, but we're seeing about a 1 to 2% increase in cost of things just due to tariffs, and I think that number could go a lot higher pretty soon. 79% of homeowners plan on doing repairs, but they're delaying it due to costs. So that means when they go to unload those houses onto a buyer, the buyer is going to have to look at doing those repair costs, or they're going to subtract it from the price, again, reducing asset valuation when buyers are coming in and saying, well, I might have to replace the roof at $30,000 because the insurance company, I can't get insurance. That's another thing I'm seeing in my market, because boy, do I talk to real estate agents. I know a lot of real estate agents, and it sometimes can be very difficult to get insurance on the property, or on a roof that's 15 years old that has 15 years of life left on. Insurance companies are saying, nope, if you want us to insure that house, you want to close on it, you're going to have to replace that roof. We're seeing this on a ton of properties going on in sales right now. Insurance companies are absolutely delaying sales. People are canceling sales oftentimes before closing because they can't get insurance, or they can't get insurance at a reasonable rate, or the insurance companies are calling absolute catastrophic costs for replacement just to get the house to closing. This is also another major problem. So the total impact of this for a $400,000 home, that adds $5,000 to $10,000 a year just simply beyond mortgage interest. That reduces buying power by 10 to 20%. These costs alone. So imagine you're reducing the buying power of 20% just because of these hyperinflated costs. So I think the conclusion here, you guys, and I hate to say it, is that we're looking at a massive decrease in housing prices in the next 12 months. Like I said, this could take a long time to play through. For example, especially the write-downs on FHA mortgages, that people can get 3, 4, 5, or 6 different write-downs on an FHA mortgage by basically tapping into their equity to cover those missed payments. A couple things are going to happen. Number one, they're going to run out of equity, especially if prices start going down then there's not going to be as much equity to grab onto to make those payments coming up. Also, and this is something I've heard from a mortgage person that I do trust, that in October of this year, I don't have an article to support this, but it was from a mortgage professional I trust, that October of this year, they're only going to allow one write down coming up on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac mortgages. And then they're basically, that taps people out. If they can only do the one to write down, which again, doing these write downs like that isn't allowing foreclosures to happen, and foreclosures are healthy to the market. It's sort of like a fire, a forest fire is really healthy for a forest that's unhealthy. You need forest fires maybe controlled. Of course, you don't want to see houses burning down, but when they're not, if they're not managing the forest correctly, then you have a forest fire that comes through. So it's kind of like similar to that in housing right now. If they don't allow foreclosures to happen, which then puts properties on the market for new buyers to come in, then that's unhealthy for the market. So you have a lot of unhealthy market and manipulation going on by the government, basically because they don't want to be accountable for what they've done. And this is a more general statement about the government officials and what's gone on over the last basically couple of decades. They are absolutely grabbing all the money they can, and they are heading for the exits.